Hi and welcome to The Print. My name is Karanjeet Kaur. I'm a writer and an editor. Let's talk today about how Chhatrapati Shivaji has come to represent a new inflection point in Goan politics and why this is especially relevant considering the violence in Nagpur over Aurangzeb's grave. If you've been following the events in Goa, you might have heard about the demonstration against Uday Bhembre. Mr. Bhembre is a renowned former lawyer, writer, activist, MLA, and he's also a Sahitya Academy Award winner. He's also 85 years old. On the night of 28th February, an angry group of 20 to 25 men gathered outside his home in Margao. Their complaint? He had dared to counter the Chief Minister Pramod Sawant over his remarks about Maratha King Chhatrapati Shivaji. Mr. Bhembre had made a YouTube video which is backed by solid historical evidence and the government's own records. The mob showed up with a videographer that telecast all their accusations. The visibly agitated leader of the group was identified as Viraj Desai, who is the state convener of the Bajrang Dal. He tallied up the group's grievances one by one. They first shouted that Bhembre had no right to utter the name of Shivaji Maharaj. Then they accused him of being against the Bahujan Samaj and Hindu unity. This was followed by the accusation that he was criticizing the CM by using Shivaji as a pretext. Now, in the middle of the speech, a group member showed Desai something on a mobile phone. After that, he accused Mr. Bhembre of being a Portuguese national, like the rest of Goa prior to 1961. Remember, Mr. Bhembre is a man who has spent decades advocating for Goan cultural autonomy. The group capped it all off by chanting slogans like Shivaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Now, as word of the confrontation spread around the state, a circle of solidarity formed around Mr. Bhembre. At a spirited citizens' demonstration the next day, prominent voices gathered to condemn police inaction. They included MPs and MLAs, as well as Gyanpith award-winning Konkani writer Damodar Mauzo. These sentiments were also echoed by ordinary Goan citizens, representing a groundswell of support for Mr. Bhembre. It also represented a tacit understanding that when one voice is threatened for speaking documented truth, all democratic spaces shrivel. In the face of organized intimidation, this spontaneous community resistance reveals what's truly at stake. Historical accuracy, for sure, but also a tradition of intellectual freedom and pluralism worth protecting. However, what unfolded that night at Mr. Bhembre's residence was the visible edge of a trend. Who controls the past and through it, public imagination? Some narratives are no longer available for examination. Some figures elevated beyond the reach of historical inquiry. And some facts are subservient to feelings. Now, let's talk about what Mr. Bhembre had actually said that warranted this inquisition. His video simply challenged the assertions that Shivaji was both a ruler of the rest of Goa beyond Portuguese territories, as well as a savior who halted religious conversions. In mid-February, at a state function in South Goa to celebrate Shiv Jayanti, CM Pramod Sawant had declared it a misconception that Portuguese ruled entire Goa for 450 years. He claimed that, instead, only 3 talukas were under colonial control, while the rest of Goa was under Shivshahi rule. Mr. Sawant also said that it was only due to his rule that a majority of Goans were not forced to convert. Mr. Bhembre's video response was very measured. He acknowledged where the CM was actually right, that Portuguese control of Goa was indeed not uniform across 450 years. Remember that Portuguese rule is divided across the old conquests over the talukas of Tiswadi, Bardes, Salsette and Mormugao, which was then a part of Salsette. And then there are the new conquests that added other territories after a gap of 220 years. Where Mr. Bhembre differed from the CM was over the other statements. He cited authoritative sources like Dr. Pandurang Pisurlekar's seminal work on Portuguese-Maratha relations and the government's own gazetteer, which was republished in 2009. Mr. Bhembre argued that Shivaji never established sustained sovereign rule over Goan territories. His strategic conquests, like the capture of northern Goan territories like Kodal in 1664 and incursions into Bardez, were part of the fluid military geography of 17th century politics. According to Mr. Bhembre, the timeline collapses under scrutiny. Religious conversions in Goa began around 1540, but Shivaji wasn't born until 1630. He told me, the population of the four talukas was a little less than 2 lakh. How long can it take to convert everyone? Even if you take 100 years and conversions go on until 1640, Shivaji must have been 10 years old then. How could he have stopped conversions at the age of 10? Mr. Bhembre also cited an incident that particularly illuminates the nuances of Shivaji's relationship with the Portuguese. In 1667, the Maratha king's forces entered Bardez. They were pursuing a Keshav Naik Desai from Pernem, who had sought Portuguese protection. Now, Shivaji's army was unable to capture Desai, so they engaged in the standard military practices of that era, which is looting homes, burning villages, and taking villagers as prisoners. They also killed 3 Catholic priests in the process. All of this wasn't some ideological crusade against Portuguese colonial power or religious policy. It was just a targeted pursuit that ended in violent confrontation. Far from the simplistic narrative now being peddled, the whole incident ended with a pragmatic treaty. The Portuguese would cease protecting Desai, while Shivaji would return looted goods and prisoners, and grant permission for Portuguese commercial activities at Dabhol, which is in the North Konkan territory. Mr. Bhembre said that even Baba Saheb Purandare, who is known as Shiv Shahir or Shivaji's Bard, never claimed that he ruled over Goa. Although remember that Shivaji also took control of Ponda Fort a few years later. But as journalist Gerard D'Souza wrote in his weekly newsletter, you cannot fact-check your way out of a dictatorship or even a populist government. D'Souza said that there's an inherent problem with attempting to counter the chief minister's claims by citing historical sources. He writes, the CM wasn't attempting to give a history lesson, though he did make it seem like that's what he was doing. He was making a political speech targeted at his political constituency, which is the caste constituency, rather than the geographic one he represents. And in doing so, he was making it clear who his target was. This isn't the first time he was doing it either. What's unfolding in Goa around Shivaji is a spatialization of power and consensus. In the last 2 years, 2 Shivaji statues have come up. One in a South Goa village that resulted in clashes with the local residents, and another 30-foot structure in Porvorim. The central government has also allocated a staggering 97 crore rupees for a new museum on Shivaji in Goa. But the Shivaji that emerges from these projects is a flattened figure. He is stripped of diplomatic nuance and secular leadership that were hallmarks of his rule. As Kaustubh Naik, a doctoral scholar at the University of Pennsylvania, explained, Shivaji affinity is not new to Goa. From the late 19th to early 20th century, several plays on the Maratha king's life were performed across Goan villages. His appeal, especially among subaltern groups, continues to this day. He told me, what is new is the scaling up of the discourse around Shivaji. The bullet rallies that you see in Goa now began around 2017. It galvanizes semi-urban and rural youngsters. And the celebration of Shiv Jayanti also represents a certain composite masculine Hindutva identity. Naik points out that these statues by themselves are not alarming. What's alarming are the way that they are being installed. The irony is that these statements diminish rather than elevate Shivaji himself. I spoke to journalist and author Sandesh Prabhudesai, who identifies as an ardent follower of Shivaji. He said that Shivaji is being projected as a savior of Hindus who fought against religious conversions. But Shivaji is beyond all this. He had a Muslim Sarnobat, bodyguards, and armory chief. He had Europeans in his army. Prabhu Desai argues that Shivaji stood for Hindvi Swaraj, or rule of the natives that included all castes and religions, including Hindus and Muslims. His army had strict instructions to not destroy religious shrines. Also, Shiv Shahi rule extended over Gujarat, Konkan, and even Tanjavur. He said, "Where is the question of Marathi rule? He was a Hindu king. He was not a king for Hinduism, but humanism. He was unlike any Muslim or Hindu king or Christian colonialist. But this narrative makes him so much smaller. The Shivaji worthy of genuine historical admiration is being sacrificed for a simplified avatar useful to contemporary power. And that's a profound disservice to his legacy," Prabhu Desai said. True respect for history's greatest begins with the courage to encounter these figures as they actually were. They were complex, they were pragmatic, and they were fully human. These confrontations echo a worrying pattern we are witnessing unfolding all over India, where historical complexity yields to politics and public sentiment. Nuance is lost and counter-narratives shut down. But not everyone can be intimidated and shut down. Certainly not people like Uday Bhembre. He recalled being attacked with rotten tomatoes and stones when he was campaigning against the merger of Goa and Maharashtra during the 1967 referendum. He told me during that interview, "My wife asked me the next morning after the mob visit if I had slept okay. I told her that I slept much better than any other day."